I'm Non-Zero Sum James, your companion on this exploration of win-win games. I've been wrong about the meaning of meritocracy for a good reason. There are many different definitions. The term has been used as a pejorative, as an aspirational term, as a definition of a government, and as a general way of allocating credit to individuals. But I understood it as this: a society where a person's rewards reflect the effort they put in, their merit. For me, this had been an aspirational definition, an ideal that cannot ultimately be reached, as individuals are affected by factors that make this impossible. Nevertheless, I feel this is the sort of society we should try to foster, where if someone wants to improve their life, they can do so simply by trying harder. If someone does not want to improve their life, they don't need to. This is the sort of world I'd like to live in. From this perspective, the tension in society and politics is between two sides. One that is working to make the world more meritocratic by levelling the playing field, and another that wants to claim that the world is already meritocratic, so we should reward people based on what they achieve, as if it is a direct reflection of their effort. This means, from one perspective, individuals who are not doing well are looked at with sympathy, and from another perspective, they are judged critically, or, as Alain de Botton describes in his 2009 TED Talk, they are described as either unfortunate or losers. In the Middle Ages, in England, when you met a very poor person, that person would be described as an unfortunate, literally someone who had not been blessed by fortune, an unfortunate. Nowadays, particularly in the United States, if you meet someone at the bottom of society, they may unkindly be described as a loser. There's a real difference between an unfortunate and a loser, and that shows 400 years of evolution in society and our belief in who is responsible for our lives. It's no longer the gods, it's us. We're in the driving seat. Alain de Botton. To my mind, people who perceive those who are not doing well as losers because they assume we already live in a meritocracy, as I've defined it, are delusional. As mentioned, we cannot achieve a perfect meritocracy by this definition, so assuming we already live in one makes no sense. But it's even more complicated than this, because my definition is not what is generally meant by meritocracy, at least not all the time. It slips, we'll get to this. What is generally meant is a society where a person's rewards reflect what they achieve, their merit. You'll notice the two definitions are basically the same, except how merit is defined. In my definition, merit is equivalent to effort. In the general definition, it is equivalent to achievement. And this is because merit literally means the quality of being particularly good or worthy, especially so as to deserve praise or reward. Our assumptions about what is worthy of reward, effort or achievement, are a key component in the definition, making its relationship to meritocracy circular. So it becomes a society where a person's rewards reflects what is worthy of reward. It's self-referential, a society where a person's rewards reflect what is worthy of reward. It doesn't say what is worthy of reward. So, to avoid this ambiguity, from this point forward, when I use meritocracy, I am referring to the achievement-based definition. I will use the admittedly clunky effortocracy to refer to my earlier effort-based definition. And let's see how much trouble we can get into. So, from a meritocratic perspective, university applications should be entirely based on marks, the level an applicant has reached when they apply. No attention should be paid to how far they have come to reach that point, what hurdles they have overcome, how much effort it has taken. When it is defined like this, we generally do already live by default in this sort of meritocracy. People are naturally rewarded for achievements, regardless of how much effort it took. But this doesn't mean that this is in any way fair or equitable or a desirable model for society. For instance, someone born into a fortune has a greater capacity to achieve things. In some respects, they can achieve things just by buying them. They can achieve broadening their mind through unrestricted travel. They can achieve a university education from a prestigious university, or they can financially support a cause they care about, and they receive praise and reward accordingly. But these are achievements that are not available for people with no money. And this is not restricted to financial advantages. Genetic and environmental advantages, natural talent, and early opportunities are unevenly distributed also. As Michael J. Sandel says in The Tyranny of Merit, differences of talent are as morally arbitrary as differences of class. As a utilitarian, I don't want to discount the importance of achieving real outcomes in the world. Getting educated, becoming more cultured, and donating to meaningful causes have real benefits for the individual and the collective. They have value. They just have a value that is already appreciated by default. This is why it's important to consider effort, which might be difficult to quantify or to reward systematically, but which comes with some worthwhile benefits. There are 3 reasons why we might consider aiming at an effortocracy. 1, it's fairer. 2, it's a better predictor of future success. And 3, it will access more human potential. Fairness, my definition of an effortocracy, is motivated by an assumption many of us share, that fairness is about equal opportunities, not in a narrow sense in that we all technically have the same legal rights, but in the deep sense that it is unfair if someone doesn't have to work as hard as someone else for the same reward. Children understand this implicitly, especially when they are on the receiving end of the unfairness. As we mature, we learn that this is not realistic, and that the world is unfair, and that regardless of this unfairness, you are largely responsible for your own goals in life. This is not necessarily any growth in wisdom on our part, but rather a resignation about, or a justification for, the situation we find ourselves in. It's a way of coping, or a way of allowing us to ignore the injustices faced by those less fortunate than ourselves. We can even employ cynicism, implying that notions of fairness are idealistic, but I think the wisdom of our inner child could tell us that greater fairness is a worthwhile end in itself. A better predictor. On the subject of juvenile wisdom, I asked my daughter the other day about whether she thought that people should be judged based primarily on their character or by what they contribute to the world. I was testing her intuitions about virtue ethics and utilitarianism. Her answer was sort of profound. She said, character, because people have different opportunities to do good in the world. She was making the point that someone might be really good, but have limited means to achieve good outcomes, whereas someone else, who has vast means, might be able to do an outweighed good without actually needing to be a particularly good person. Again, I don't want to discount the utilitarian value of good done by the high-capacity person. Donations have the same value regardless of the virtue of the giver. But my daughter was pointing to the predictive value of the assessment. The person of good character is more likely to continue doing good. The example of Elon Musk immediately sprang to mind. A person that, for about a decade, generated tremendous good in the world, despite its significant character flaws. It turns out flaws like crashing his McLaren F1, numerous failed marriages, psychologically torturing his employees, and casually accusing a volunteer rescue worker of being a pedo guy were more predictive of his future behaviour than were his achievements. If we think about the predictive value of effort, as opposed to achievement, I believe we will find the same pattern. Effort is likely to be a better indicator of future behaviour. So when choosing a doctoral candidate, for instance, it might not just be fairer to give someone who has overcome more obstacles preferential acceptance. It might also be a better predictor of success. Accessing human potential. In Wide Hats and Narrow Minds, Stephen Jay Gould says, I am somehow less interested in the weight and convolutions of Einstein's brain than in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweatshops. Another pragmatic benefit of levelling the playing field is that people who have the potential to contribute breakthroughs for humanity could be discovered, regardless of their location or situation, In fact, Harvard researchers studying inventors and patents in 2018 concluded there are many lost Einsteins, individuals who would have had highly impactful inventions had they been exposed to innovation in childhood, especially among women, minorities, and children from low-income families. So there are both moral and practical reasons for levelling the playing field to try to enable rewards to reflect efforts. Rewards. The way rewards are naturally allocated align with the general concept of meritocracy, in that achievement is usually rewarded. There is a place for this form of reward. Utilitarian benefits are real and valuable, but they are essentially taken care of as a matter of course. But this is not a complete reward system. It is not fair, and as de Botton states, makes for a society that casts people as losers, when they may merely be unfortunate. Michael J. Sandel holds that this creates unhealthy poles in society of hubris and humiliation, because advocates of meritocracy, as it is generally understood, end up misreading achievement as morally deserved. In this way, it's as if the advocates of meritocracy are unwittingly performing a bait and switch, measuring meritocratic success by achievement, but attributing to it the moral weight of an effortocratic reward, as if their achievement is a direct indication of effort. This is what I meant earlier about the slipping of definitions. We are measuring by one metric and giving credit by another. To truly measure and reward by an effortocratic measure, we need both a top-down and bottom-up approach. At the top, reward people who have overcome more to get to the same point. At the bottom, level the playing field so that potential, wherever it is, can be realized. I recognize that measuring effort and leveling the playing field are difficult goals to quantify. We will need to use flawed measures, such as outcomes and personal testimony, to record them. And we will need incomplete and distinct categories like childhood development, education, health, and finances to try and address them. But this is better than using achievement as the only indicator of merit. So, I believe the meritocracy we actually want is an effortocracy, one that aims at fairness despite its impossibility. By looking at society as an experiment in levelling the playing field, we are addressing that unresolved question our inner child keeps asking: why is the world unfair? And does it have to be so unfair? And fairness is not all that's at stake. Prioritizing effort gives a better indication of future benefits, and ultimately leads to discovering the lost Einsteins all around the world. As Neil deGrasse Tyson says, imagine how much more advanced society would be today if women, who comprise half the world's brain power, were socially and intellectually enfranchised from the beginning of civilization. But most importantly, if you take anything away from this, it is to recognize that if meritocracy is based on achievement only, then we must be sure not to confuse it with effortocracy when it comes to its moral weight. Don't make the same mistake I did in assuming that if something is meritocratic, it is somehow fair and an indication of effort. Recognizing what an effortocracy is makes clear that we very much don't have one. But we can culturally evolve in a way that elevates this value. P.S. An interesting extension of this idea that goes even further than effort is John Rawls' take on circumstances. Even the willingness to make an effort, to try, is itself dependent upon happy family and social circumstances. John Rawls. While I do think it might be worth drawing the line at effort, Rawls reminds us that we really don't get to choose anything about our initial developmental ingredients, and so should have compassion for ourselves and others, even if it seems like effort is lacking.